Okay, pro wrestling fans, it's your buddy Mike Messier with a very special, spontaneous kind of commentary or discussion here. Apparently, Cody Rhodes and BRANDI Rhodes, the lovely husband and wife wrestling team duo there, they met over at WWE when BRANDI was a ring announcer. Cody, of course, was a wrestler over at WWE, and now they're going over to. They went over to help form the about 3 years ago or so, less than 3 years ago actually, and now it's over. At least for the time being, and in wrestling, this could change in a week, it could change in a year, it could change in a month. There's an official Twitter thing from Cody. I think BRANDI made a statement. Tony Khan made a statement. Everyone's making a statement. So very exciting. Just things change. Now, of course, the big question would be, will Cody go back over to WWE? If you have any thoughts on that, feel free to leave a comment for the wrestling fans. What do I think? I don't know. I could see Cody going to WWE just to get a paycheck. Unfortunately, the biggest match that I think Cody could have, believe it or not, would be Cody versus Triple H, given their history, some of the behind the scenes stuff with those two. But I apparently Triple H is not in good physical shape right now, unfortunately. So that's not going to happen. So, I don't know what could the WWE do with Cody to promote him or to feature him if it wasn't just playing off the fact that he was a founder of AEW. I don't know if that would be really good for WWE, to be honest, because how can they feature Cody as a former WWE guy who went over to AEW and helped form it without putting over AEW? And who knows? I mean, going back to the Vince Russo conspiracy theory a couple of years ago, WWE is, in Vince Russo's mind, perhaps WWE was helping AEW get started in the first place. That's a theory that Vince Russo shared many times. I don't particularly agree with that or think that's true, but anything's possible. I think this is an interesting development. I kind of enjoy matches in AEW. I thought his matches brought a different aspect to wrestling, kind of an old school thing, the emotional thing. I've got a question from John Tarver, or a commentary, which is great. It seems like we're having a slow, feed here today, guys. So I apologize for that. I'm not sure why the feed is so slow. Let me see if I can post your commentary here. Hey, John Tarver. Hey, Mike, I've been busy lately. Just wanted to put my 2 cents on this, even though it's probably way out of left field. I think if Cody goes back, Vince will use him as an example and bury him. You're thinking like me now, buddy. I mean, I really don't know. Creatively, you could do a lot of stuff with Cody and BRANDI without necessarily giving too much of a rub to AEW, but I think it would just be understood. It's kind of like when Flair came over in 91, going way back when. He was kind of giving a little bit of a rub to WCW, the former NWA, by having Ric Flair win the Royal Rumble. It's just kind of goes hand in hand with it. So they could, but the question is, would Cody be intelligent enough, and he probably is, to protect himself creatively? Would he have some type of creative control clause in his contract? If he asked for that, would they give it to him? Would he have the balls to ask for it? And maybe he doesn't want to go back. I got to think that with these recent, the Go Big show and the different things that Cody's been doing, and BRANDI as well, do they really need to do anything they don't want to do right now? And maybe Cody just wants to retire early from wrestling, or just do a couple of spots in Japan here and there, or even a couple of spots in the old NWA, or I can see him definitely being a guy, even if there's no contract with AEW. I could see him coming in for big shows once or twice a year. I could see him, still being on good terms with the company. If he goes back to WWE and I'm proven wrong, then I'm proven wrong. I don't think just because a guy's leaving AEW Doesn't mean he's got to go back to WWE. I personally would love to see him in the NWA and develop talent there and be a great mentor. Good point. I guess we're kind of on the same thought process because he did have that NWA title reign when he and Nick Aldis kind of traded the belt back and forth a couple of times a couple of years ago. That was when the All In show, that the predecessor to AEW. So I think this is an interesting development. People have been kind of waiting or speculating who would be the first big AEW original name to go to WWE. And in a sense, this is possibly that if Cody goes to WWE or goes back. So I don't know. I just think it's interesting. I'm a little surprised. I was going to read this. If you want to hear me, I don't know if I can do a Cody impersonation. He's got a really long tweet. I have loved my time at AEW. This is Cody Rhodes' official statement. I have loved my time at AEW. Amazing locker room, amazing fans, amazing people. The revolution was indeed televised, and I've been incredibly lucky to be part of that. First, I want to thank Tony. I can't even read this. I was going to try to read this whole fucking thing, but it's really long, and it's fine. It's just a thank you shtick. I'm trying to see if I can find the whatever the fuck, the Tony Khan tweet or whatever, the response tweets. Interesting photo of Thunder Rosa here online. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's fine. I think it's interesting. It's not the end of the world, folks. AEW will continue. I will personally kind of miss the matches that Cody brought to the table as far as like having more storyline based matches as opposed to just high spots or whatever. But, it's not the end of the world. AEW will continue. They have plenty of depth, more so than ever. If anything, crisis is the same word for opportunity in Chinese, as we know, according to Lisa Simpson. And you'll have some new spots open. Rob Clark is 2020. God damn, the fucking phone was hooked into my TV, and so it just blew up the whole thing. So anyway, folks, that's very exciting. If you have any further questions, John or anyone else, feel free to comment. I don't know what else to say. It's just breaking news. It's exciting. Once again, crisis is another word for opportunity. This leaves spots for Jay White, Brian Pillman Jr. He could do some of these angles, some of these, personal storylines. He's very good with emotions, babyface. Really, if you think about it, if you're upset that Cody's leaving, and it's not going to ruin my day one way or the other, but really the fans just need to blame themselves. I mean, these were the people that were booing him out of the building as a babyface. So if you're upset now, then you blame yourself. But if you're an AEW fan that was booing Cody Rhodes, booing him, booing Brandy, now they're gone. And if you get super kicks in every match now from now on, then you have yourself to blame. You know what I mean? So let's see, really, what else did you get there, John? Nothing really to say right now. Just know it's great. I've actually been saying that too, John. And I think one thing I would agree, buddy, is, yep, that's Dante. Yes, buddy. Cody Rhodes has left AEW. Cody and BRANDI Rhodes. Apparently, Dustin is sticking around, though. Yes, Dante, it's the breaking news. And Cody has confirmed it. Cody Rhodes leaving AEW confirmed. So it's a Cody Rhodes tweet. I believe Brandy and Tony Khan have all acknowledged it. I was just speculating, Dante, that I think and John here was also speculating, will Cody go to WWE? I don't see how that would work, but they could easily do it. They could figure something out. I don't know if it particularly helps WWE to kind of promote a guy who's best known for leaving WWE and helping make AEW. But then again, the NWO storyline years ago did some creative stuff, 30 years ago, whatever that was. So it's quite possible that Cody will be back in WWE. Could they hotspot him for WrestleMania? My speculation, Dante and John, was that the best match that Cody could have done would have been Cody versus Triple H. But maybe they could do Cody versus Shane McMahon. Cody versus Shane McMahon at WrestleMania if they shoehorn it in. Blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, Cody's gone, buddy. I particularly, I can see it going a few ways. What I would say is probably the way I would most expect it to be is Cody just remaining on good terms and kind of being like a part-timer, like a Goldberg for WWE, 3 or 4 matches a year or 2 matches a year. I could see that happening, but I could see him going back to WWE. One other thing here, buddy, is these TV shows that he does, the Go Big Show, which I actually started watching a few episodes. I've been taping it since the beginning. I just haven't watched it. With YouTube TV, you can tape as much as you want. But I've been watching it, and it's a fun show. It's an interesting show. He's also got that reality show. I don't know. I don't want to say this is a work. I mean, what would the work be? But who knows, folks. But John had some good ideas. John thought that maybe Cody could be going over to NWA, Impact Wrestling. To be honest, I could just see him not doing wrestling right now. I think they've got one kid and a dog, and Cody's got his nice little wife, and they're still in their early to mid 30s, and so Cody could do a lot of stuff, and he's probably saved his money pretty well. So, I mean, at some point, all these bumps. I haven't heard any update on Triple H's ability to wrestle again, but a Rhodes reigns for you may be interesting to see. Good point. Very good point, John. I mean, WWE creatively is really pretty dormant and dead. They're just recycling the Brock Lesnar's, and they're recycling the Goldbergs. Cody's a different type of guy. He's not a body guy. He's not a jacked up guy. He's more of a storyteller, and maybe he can reposition himself and reframe himself if he comes back to WWE, and who knows? I mean, it's possible. But I do think from what I've heard, John, is that Triple H is not in shape to wrestle, and he's not doing I've just heard that he's not doing that great. And I'm pulling for Triple H because I don't wish him ill. I've just heard that he's not going to really be able to wrestle again. But I don't know that personally. It's just what I've heard. So who knows? But I hope he's doing okay. And I think Dante had another thought here. Let's see, buddy. I think he can do TV shows and acting. He's got the look and personality. Yeah, and here's the thing, folks. Nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd. For Cody Rhodes when he's on TNT or TBS with the Go Big Show and the reality show, and he's hanging out with the likes of Shaquille O'Neal. I was there when Cody and Red Velvet teamed up against Jade Cargill and Shaq. I was there for that in Jacksonville. So whenever Cody kind of gives himself the rub with these guys, these celebrities, it's a smart move. And I'm sure he's made some inroads, so to speak, with the people in Hollywood. And his father, Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, always visioned himself as a filmmaker of sorts for wrestling. So I think it's quite possible that Cody could just be taking an extended time off from pro wrestling in general. And maybe he gets a few matches in with AEW once or twice a year. A little worried about my audio, guys. It seems to be okay, but if anyone is experiencing audio troubles, if you could leave a comment if the audio is either good or bad, or the I don't know. It just seems like I have a slow connection today. Sorry about that. What can I do? I don't run the cable company with a Wi-Fi company. But anyway, folks, this will certainly shake things up. Here's a good question. Really good. Hey, Joseph, how you doing, buddy? Do you think tomorrow's show will be overshadowed by Cody and Brandi leaving AEW? I would guess that the way to deal with this, the smart way, Joseph, and AEW is pretty much a smart federation. They will probably acknowledge it, I would say, within the first 10 minutes of the show. Maybe not the very first thing they do. Maybe after the first match, they would probably screenshot Cody's tweet, maybe Brandy's tweet, maybe Tony Khan's tweet, and who knows? Maybe they'd even have him come out and say goodbye. I'm not sure where AEW is coming from tomorrow night. I'll be going to the show, I believe, on March 2nd in Jacksonville. I don't know if tomorrow's show will be overshadowed, but I just think that they will probably acknowledge it, but not dwell on it. It would be kind of nice if Cody gets to have a farewell match or just a goodbye on camera. That would be kind of cool. Just lag all around. Hope you ain't got Spectrum. Yeah, I still listen to Jim Cornette. I'm more of a Vince Russo guy, but I still like Jim Cornette. He's got some great rants, and he's obviously probably in the top 3 managers of all time. I was watching Flair, and actually Flair's new Woo Nation reboot is actually pretty good. To give him credit, his Conrad show years ago was really bad, but I think Flair's kind of settled down, and I think that he kind of likes that. What's his name? Matt or Mark, the guy that does the show with Woo Nation with Flair. He's such a sycophant for Flair. It's unbelievable. Mark Madden. But I think that, the Flair show is pretty good. And he was talking about Jim Cornette. And Madden said, is Jim Cornette the greatest manager of all time? And Flair said, no, Bobby Heenan is. Cornette's number 2. I can agree with that, but I just kind of thought, man, Flair didn't even put over J.J. Dillon at all. So I thought that was a little unfortunate. Why not put over J.J. while you're at it? But who's your top 3 managers? That could be a good video. Folks, I think I'm going to be doing some nostalgia wrestling stuff. I feel like I've expressed so much ill will about the WWE product in the last few years that my actual interest or love of pro wrestling has kind of been overshadowed by my hate of contemporary WWE. But I kind of want to get back into just about the good old days of wrestling. I was there for early ROH matches. I was there for in Philadelphia. I would take road trips to early ROH matches. I saw Xavier lose the title one night. I was there for the tag team tournament, the first one. I went back. I've seen some stuff happening in wrestling that I think you guys should hear about. Some good conversations. I saw the UWF tag team title champions, the Lightning Express, in person. So I've seen some great stuff in wrestling. Jim Cornette. I saw the Lightning Express, the Midnight Express, in a lumberjack tennis rackets match. So, there's a lot of things. That's a really good question. John, very good question, actually. I like it. Do you think Cody goes in the ROH Hall of Fame? I think that would be very beneficial to ROH. I think if ROH is rebooting, which it appears that they are trying to, if they could get Cody in for a couple of spots, that would be very beneficial for them. And Cody might do that as just an altruistic thing. There's some thought. I think the ROH fading out and AEW emerging is really kind of an interesting story that hasn't been fully explained or explored. But I think if you take a look at the fact that ROH kind of was the number 2 or the number 3 wrestling promotion in the USA at the time that AEW emerged, a lot of the guys at the original All In were coming over from ROH, including Cody. And then they kind of just went off and did their own thing, which became AEW, and ROH got left in the dust. And maybe the fact that they were owned, Sinclair Broadcasting owned ROH at the time, which I think they still do. Maybe that was part of some of these guys, because some of these guys are, very liberal minded, I would think, Cody is included. Maybe I'm wrong. But this very far right wing ownership company of Sinclair Broadcasting, maybe that had something to do with these guys. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit. A lot of times the wrestlers just go by whoever's signing the check, they'll take it. They don't worry about who's signing the check, just how much it's for. Who knows? But I could see Cody doing that. I've been enjoying the Impact versus Honor No More faction storyline. Just wondering what's going to happen with Josh Alexander. Well, I heard BRANDI Rhodes mention she kind of put Josh Alexander over on AEW last week. Was that just this past week on Dynamite 6 days ago with her thing with Dan Lambert? So that was interesting. Yeah, well, here's the thing about pro wrestling in general, guys. They hook you in, don't they? Because it's always a question of what's going to happen next. And unlike the NFL, there's no off season. The Super Bowl just happened on Sunday, and now it's Tuesday, and it's like, okay, we don't have Super Bowl for another 7 or 8 months, right? So who cares? But with wrestling, the wheels keep on turning. And that's one thing I think that non-wrestling fans never get about pro wrestling. How can you be a pro wrestling fan? How can you watch this stuff? Well, it's because it never ends. So if you start to get hooked into it for a little while, you never have an off period, do you? I think Ahmed's got another question. Well, I'm glad that I'm glad that I'm doing something right, Ahmed, because I figured a lot of people would be blasting out their reaction videos and so forth. I was going to try and read the whole Twitter thing, but you can find it. It's such a long thing, Ahmed. But yeah, Cody and Brandy are gone. It's been confirmed by themselves and Tony Khan. It's not just speculative. And hey, I've got a little bit of egg on my face. I'm not going to erase my Twitter thing, but I think it was Ringside News. I guess I owed an apology to because Cody was not going back, and what they said is Cody Rhodes going to going to WWE, and I said Cody is not going to WWE. Spoiler. So I was pretty adamant. I don't think Cody's going to WWE, but I wouldn't be shocked. He's got so many things going on with TBS and TNT, Ahmed. I would kind of think, it's just my speculation, that Cody will remain a free agent. He might do spot shows, meaning big pay-per-view matches or 1 or 2 shows a year for AEW. But that's just me speculating. I'm just thinking what I would do if I was him. I would be kind of surprised. I'd be more surprised if Cody goes to WWE than just Cody leaving AEW, if that makes any sense. But I'm shocked too, Ahmed. I just think it's very interesting. Very interesting if WWE gets to wrangle Cody, if they can do something with it, and not just like John speculated they might, but not just punish Cody, make him feel bad for leaving or make him look bad. If they could do something creative with Cody, it would be great. And actually who would book that the best would probably be Cody himself. So it's very interesting, folks. Once again, I say that if the fans are upset, those fans that were booing Cody, booing Brandy, maybe they should take some accountability. Maybe they should take some ownership. But I mean, if you think about Cody, the superplex through the fire with Andrade, yes, he came out with the fire, the repellent on his back. That looked kind of cheesy. But if you think about the most recent ladder match with Sammy Guevara and Cody, if you think about Cody putting MJF over on pay-per-view, Cody putting Jericho over on pay-per-view, I mean, I guess you could say he lost 2 pay-per-view matches in a row. The title switch for the NWA title with Nick Aldis, that kind of kicked all in. A lot of things Cody was involved in. That American Dream thing from last summer didn't work so well for some people. I was there for that match and that promo. And yeah, I mean, sometimes Cody swung for the trees and sometimes he hit him and sometimes he didn't. But I think he always gave some pretty good stuff. And I could just think maybe he just doesn't want to be the John Cena, babyface getting booed guy for the next 5 years. Maybe he just doesn't see himself like that. And this might be a very wise move. Sometimes the best thing to do is to take a break. And as far as finances, I don't think Cody Rhodes is in any type of financial trouble. I think he's a smart young guy. Him and his wife have probably invested their money from all these TV shows well. And maybe he just wants to give himself a break as far as just taking a little vacation. I'll be honest, I never understood the boos the fans would give them both. They were a great wrestling couple. And even though Cody wasn't a megastar, he did have some sort of star power as humble. Yeah, I kind of agree with that, Ahmed. And I even had a little thing a couple of years ago where I actually challenged Cody Rhodes to an NWA World Title match. It was more of a joke than anything else. But I like Cody. I thought he did some great matches. John chimes in, very good point. He has done an outstanding job putting Sammy, MJF, and Darby over. That's right. I forgot about that. He lost he was the 3-time TNT champion, but that meant he lost the title 3 times. He lost it to Sammy. But before that, he lost it to Mr. Brody Lee and Darby Allin. And he did get Darby over in kind of a babyface versus babyface thing. That's one thing you got to give Cody is that he was kind of a tweener. I mean, he would wrestle baby heels and not terribly change his own gimmick or his own persona either way. He never had like a real, thing. His thing with Aleister Black, he put Aleister Black over. Cody will come back as a heel in AEW. It's a work. Norman, great point, man. I think you might be onto something there, Norman, because I wouldn't even argue with that. I think that might be a great way to do things. I think one thing that they could do is that his whole, if you remember that stipulation where he wasn't supposed to wrestle for the AEW world title after losing that match to Jericho, if they can somehow, if he can renege on that, if Cody reneges on that and challenges for the world title, and that could really be a heel move, like you reneged on your word. I think that could be a really interesting thing. And that could be a way to bring him back. But I think let's put it this way, folks. I think Cody and Tony Khan are on probably such a good level that even if it's time to just take some time off, I think he'd be welcome back. Even if he does go to WWE and comes back, it's not the end of the world. That's what I'm getting at between Cody and AEW. Brandi, it's kind of interesting because this Brandi storyline with Dan Lambert, that's going to kind of go, unfinished. But I think I could totally see Lambert running down Brandi for a few weeks or a few months, and then Brandi coming back for a one-off. I mean, I don't want to be in denial, folks. I just my gut feeling or my suspicion here is that this is not necessarily a work, but they're just going to take some time off, recoup, and revisit, down the line. But I don't think we've seen the last of Cody and AEW. I'm more curious if WWE is going to make a hard push for Cody, try to get him back with and that would be very fascinating. And to their credit, if WWE can figure out a way to make it work creatively, then that would be very interesting. Yeah, we're all kind of getting on that same page here, John. This extended work thing, we're all kind of thinking that way. And, John says maybe an extended work of sorts. I don't disagree. It could really be that way. Well, let's see what else, folks. Can I mention, I'm just trying to do things for my own life. I did do an AEW apologist video, which I put in the community section. For those that you guys are watching right now, if you get over to my community section, I don't know if you see that on my YouTube channel, but I post like kind of the featured video of the day. And when I do videos for the Monty and the Pharaoh YouTube channel, I try to cross-reference them because it's all about wrestling. It's the AEW apologist video from yesterday. They did I guess I want to say thanks to Mike Monty. He did a really nice intro video for me on that thing too. Nicely edited job, Mike. And I'm just trying to do what's best for me these days. I'm trying to be a little more active with some things that have kind of fallen by the wayside. I've had some changes in the last couple of months. I've changed my living location, and that always brings changes. I've also been trying to change my sleep schedule. I'm trying to wake up earlier and go to sleep earlier just to give that a shot, and so on and so forth. So any more questions, Ahmed? Let's see, buddy. Let's see what Ahmed's got for us. I'd agree with you on your point of view. I think by him leaving and coming back after a while, they will give him a huge pop, a big pop, and might give him even more popularity. It is one of the current hot topics now. Well, there you go. And to John's point, talking about Jim Cornette, one of Cornette's catchphrases that I actually steal and I love is, "How can we miss you if you won't go away? How can we miss you if you won't go away?" And back in the territory days of pro wrestling, when you had like Mid-Southern or you had Mid-South and you had World-Class Championship Wrestling, AWA, guys like, Baron von Raschke, he could go back from the AWA to Mid-Atlantic, and he could be a babyface in AWA and a heel in Mid-Atlantic. You had guys like Butch Reed, who could kind of come over to World Class just every once in a while for a big show, and I think he wrestled Chick Donovan at the first Parade of Champions. Butch Reed is kind of a lower card heel, just winning a simple match with Chick Donovan. But Butch Reed was a mainstay in the UWF or the Mid-South territory. You used to have this thing where wrestlers could leave. Even Bruno Sammartino, between his title runs, I think he left and did some things on the West Coast in between his two WWF title runs. When Hulk Hogan, for younger fans, Hulk Hogan left WWF or WWE, goes over to WCW, the whole NWO thing, and eventually he comes back. 2002, he comes back after 9 years, and it's like the people just blew the roof off the place at the Sky Dome and everywhere else for Hulk Hogan. So my point is, How can we miss you if you won't go away? You know, Dolph Ziggler. I mean, the best thing Dolph Ziggler could have done for his career years ago would have been to have left the WWE, but he never left. So he just remained stagnant. Here's a little tea for you. Okay, folks. Well, I'm going to take another couple of minutes of comments and questions. If you have comments and questions, I'm going to give about a minute and a half to type them up. So you got about a minute and a half, guys, to type them up. Comments or questions, and we'll wrap this thing up. Feel free to share the videos, and like I said, check the community page. Very true. Absence makes the heart grow fonder at times. I like this sort of buzz. It reminds me of the good times of wrestling during the Monday Night War times. Great point, Ahmad. Ahmad, I'm not sure where you're viewing from, buddy. If you want to put your home state or even your home country, I'm not sure if you're in the U.S. here with us or somewhere else, but I have been kind of asking people if they just want to put where they're at, because I can maybe mention some of the wrestling history that's happened in your area. If I know what it is, I'll be happy to discuss it a little bit. But let me know where you're at, John and Ahmed and Norman. Thanks everybody for checking in. Like I said, about another minute or so of comments or questions. If you want to type those in real quick, I'll give you some time to type them in. But you know, if you feel like sharing this video, I do a lot of wrestling stuff. I do the weekly AEW apologist report. Oh, very interesting. From Dublin, Ireland, we had the Friday Night Wars. You'd have to tell me about that. That's something new to me. What was the Friday Night Wars? I'd love to hear about it. Friday Night Wrestling Wars from Dublin, Ireland. And here's the thing. I don't know. It's really just my own ignorance on that is what is going on with Dublin, Ireland's history of pro wrestling. I really don't know. I know about the world of sports, but that's not Ireland. That's UK. So I really like to know about the Dublin, Ireland pro wrestling history. Is there stuff going on there now? I'm from Louisiana. The first thought in my mind is the Von Erichs for some reason. Well, if you remember, John, way back when, David Von Erich was being groomed for the NWA World Heavyweight title, and they would send David to Florida to work as a heel with Dory Funk Jr. And there's even a really random video on YouTube. I think it's of Kerry Von Erich and David as heels in Florida. Like Kerry came in for just one show, and apparently Kerry and David like escorted Ric Flair to the ring and were like his seconds when he fought Butch Reed. And Kerry Von Erich as a heel is hilarious. He's wearing a earring, like a feather earring. Let's see. We had Raw on a Friday night on Sky Sports and WCW Nitro on Bravo. We didn't get Raw and Nitro Live back in the day. Well, that's very interesting. I mean, I think that's very interesting. You had kind of like the Monday Night Wars, but on a Friday. And I'm curious how those ratings were for you guys. And I could be wrong on that, but did Impact Wrestling or TNA Wrestling come through Ireland in the last like 10 years? Did they tour? And I know they did very well in the UK, United Kingdom. Did they go to Ireland per se? Because I think Drew McIntyre was huge over there. But you tell me, because I just have a vague memory of Impact Wrestling. Did you ever get to see Impact live in the last 10 years or so? You know, you think about people talk about who are wrestlers who have wrestled as baby faces or heels their whole career and never switched. For some reason, we don't talk about the Von Erichs, but I don't think Kevin Von Erich ever wrestled as a heel. And Kerry Von Erich only did that one kind of match in Florida where he and David escorted Flair. It did indeed. Every time they went to the UK, they stopped in Ireland beforehand. Yeah, I think I've been listening to Jeff Jarrett's podcast with CONRAD THOMPSON, and interesting that Jeff Jarrett says that they did very good business in the UK, places like Ireland, and there was even a thought of moving the whole company over there for a while because they were doing much better business in the UK. So I think that's great. Also, man, I'm just curious, how's the pandemic situation over there for you guys? Is it under control? Is it leveled off? Is it bad? I'm just curious. I don't want to change the topic too much, but I'm just curious about that stuff. It's a very interesting time for wrestling, and I think one of you guys, I think it might have been Ahmad or John, said that this is a great time to be a wrestling fan, which is true, because if nothing else, we have all these streaming services and all the backlog of videos. Impact actually doing tapings in New Orleans this weekend, but it's such a small venue, the tickets are overpriced. Interesting. Very interesting, buddy. And I'll be honest, I haven't really been following Impact a whole lot recently, and I'll tell you, I mean, I don't want to shit all over them, but just the fact that they had Joey Ryan in there a couple of years ago, that storyline where Tessa won the men's title, and I know some people say, well, it's not necessarily a men's title, it's just a world's title. Well, then how come the men aren't wrestling for the women's title? And I know that there's been intergender matches for a long time in wrestling, going, Baby Doll versus Jim Cornette. However, I just think when Tessa is beating guys like Brian Cage, how can it not have an adverse effect on his reputation? And yes, it's all a storyline. I get it. But I just, the Joey Ryan Wrestlers Court stuff, I think history proved me to be on the right side of history with Joey Ryan. I've been speaking out for years against Joey Ryan and his maneuvers. And I was proven to be absolutely 100% morally correct on that, which nobody wants to give me credit for, but I'll take it. Folks, I think that's about it. We had a good live feed here. Once again, if you check the community page, you'll see my videos of the day. Let's see. John's got another comment. That era was drama, but I'm not opposed to Jordan Grace versus Matt Cardona. Well, Jordan's a very powerful woman. Yeah, I mean, when you say the exception to the rule, Jordan, who could probably bench press all three of us, over her heads, Ahmed, John, and myself, and maybe even our other gentleman here, Dante, Jordan's very physically powerful is what I'm saying. So her, the late, great Chyna, even believe it or not, I could see Charlotte Flair doing intergender matches. When promoted correctly, intergender matches can make sense and that can be worth the payoff. But I don't think it should be a thing where it's the norm. And I think by Tessa Blanchard winning their men's championship, sorry, it's a men's championship, I think it actually demotes their women's championship at the time, which I think at the time Tara Valkyrie held. But to me, it's just kind of, blah, blah, blah. Last thought for y'all. What do you think of Matt Cardona as a belt collector? I think it's good. I mean, I think Cardona, kind of like a Cody, and I think Cardona just came in for one tag team match on Dynamite back in the empty Daly's Place era. I think Cardona is a guy who connected with people on social media. He's got a beautiful wrestling wife, to his credit. I mean, I'm not trying to minimize him as an individual, but the score he's gotten with that Chelsea Green, kudos to as far as the belt collector, I think it's good. I think it's good for him. Let's put it that way. I think sometimes when these guys like Omega last summer had like the Impact title, the AEW World title, he had a Japanese title, he had several belts. I mean, didn't Omega have 5 or 6 title belts? And I think back to Ultimo Dragon, 20 years ago, 97, 98, comes out to Nitro with like 9 cruiserweight belts. I wonder if it's good for those companies. I wonder if just having your belt as just a collection for one guy is good for the company. And I guess it depends on how you look at it. But to me, as an old school wrestling fan, thinking back to the old ways of doing things, it doesn't make much sense for the companies, but for the wrestler, it's great for him. So it's really a matter of perspective. But I've got nothing against Cardona. As a matter of fact, I have an eBay store now where I'm selling and trading. I should say I'm buying stuff, wrestling stuff, and now selling stuff. Mike Messier on eBay, but I got $15.50 for my Matt Cardona Stomp Pro Wrestling crate, Micro Buddy or whatever it's called. It was interesting to see Nick Aldis wait until Trevor lost the title to invoke his rematch clause. NWA, Nick Aldis, Trevor Murdoch. It's funny, when I went to see the AEW pay-per-view, I think in November, I was seated in the back of it was a movie theater. I paid $25 to go to a movie theater to see the AEW pay-per-view. And I'm sitting in the back on an end seat. I always sit on an end seat. And this group of people comes and sit next to me. And it's two guys, a fat guy, a thin guy, and they're going to sit in the seats next to me. And of course, they stick the fat guy next to me. I'm like, what? You couldn't just, look, granted, you don't want to put your girl next to me. I get that. But you couldn't even put the thin guy next to me. You got to put the two fat guys next to each other. So I waited for the fucking AEW pay-per-view to get going. And then I found that there was one of those handicapped, buddy seats open and available in the front. So I took that seat. You know what I mean? Because I really didn't want to sit next to this fat guy for 3 hours during this pay-per-view. Mike, I really enjoy these interactive wrestling chats. Do keep them up. I do try to do as much as possible once quiet and work. Oh, I think that, buddy. I really do, man. And good to hear from you all the way from Dublin, Ireland. I'm curious what time it is in Dublin, Ireland, but I guess I can look that up myself. Well, anyway, folks, this has been fun. I will be doing some more stuff. I want to do some things where I open up packages of wrestling magazines and I explore the old wrestling magazines and share stories. I've got a photo album of my old wrestling pictures of matches that I took in the Baltimore Arena when I was a kid, and other wrestling stories. So let me know if there's any particular promotions you want to hear about. But I've seen some great stuff. I got to say, I've seen Biff Busick live before he went to NXT. Tommaso Ciampa, I used to see him all the time in Fall River. I used to do commentary for his matches in Top Rope Promotions. Got a lot of good wrestling stories. I went to a Saturday Night's Main Event, an old school Hogan Saturday Night's Main Event. I'll be sharing these wrestling stories and just trying to do things a little bit differently, but I like the interaction. So Ahmad, John, Dante, I believe. Thanks, guys, for participating. Like I said, check the community post over there and so on and so forth. Okay, guys, have a good day. And thank you, Cody, and thank you, Brandy, for the memories.